Hello, hello.
Hey,
Hey,
Carlos.
Denise. Hey, Carlos.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. How do you like my background?
Very thematic. Nicely done. Let me turn my lights on.
And hello, Frank. How are you?
I'm well.
Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it. And we got other guests that are already started joining.
Wonderful.
Jay Lampert and Sharon. Juan and Laura are from our team, and Denise from our team. Betty's another guest.
Do you want me to start sharing my screen already, Carlos, just so there's an introductory page, or do you want to leave it here for the time being?
So leave it like this for now, while people start joining, and then we'll do the sharing. Hello, Betty. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing, Eddie? Thank you for joining us. Amy, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Cord, how come I don't hear it?
Just had the.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, now we can hear it.
Okay, good. We can hear you as well.
Yeah, now we can.
Thank you for joining us today.
Hi. Come over here.
So you guys excited for today's event?
Very excited. This is our second. We went to one a few weeks ago or months ago. And we're going on our first cruise in 2 weeks.
Nice.
We're going to Alaska on the Muse.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very
That's
excited.
That's fantastic. When you mean your first cruise, you mean your first cruise overall or your first cruise after
Ever.
ever? Oh,
Ever.
wow.
Yeah.
And you're starting at the top.
Well, that's what people tell us.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for
That's
you.
fantastic.
Well, and I think, right now, given whatever the heck is going on, it's a great place to start because you're essentially home. You're, of course, at times you'll be in Canada. I don't know, you're starting in Vancouver or in Seward?
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah, we're going.
And that makes it easy because then when you arrive in Seward and then Anchorage, you're essentially flying domestically to get home. So no tests to worry about, nothing like that. That makes it nice and easy.
But we do, I mean, as I said, we have a what's his name? He made all the reservations, Javier
Mhm.
Salinas.
We're on the door to door.
Yeah, we're going,
Oh, good.
yeah, door
Yes.
to door. But what was I gonna say? We have to get all the information about doing the COVID tests right before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because Canada has done away with the entry testing, which is interesting because I live in Toronto, I'm Canadian. For 2 years, we were much more conservative with COVID restrictions and things like that than the US. But as of April 1, we did away with entry testing, but you still have to use an app. There's an app called ArriveCan.
We have it, but
Okay.
we can't do anything until.
No.
To our departure.
Yeah. So all that is you upload your proof of vaccination, it issues you a QR code, and as you enter Canada, you show the immigration person that QR code, and then you're in. And the rest of it is, as I said, ostensibly a domestic trip because you're in Alaskan waters, you're in Alaska. When you arrive in Alaska, you're arriving as an American into the US.
Right.
So it's really straightforward. So great place to start.
Yeah, we're very, very excited.
Hey, Javi.
Yes.
Amy, you see this guy with the ponytail over there? That's your advisor.
Where?
To meet you.
Where's Javier?
Say hello, Javi.
Where do we, are you,
Yeah.
oh,
Let me spotlight Javi for a
Let me
second.
see.
That's Javi.
Oh, there, hi. I didn't put
Put the
makeup
filter
on.
on.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, that's.
We've been talking to you a lot.
Yeah. Nice to see you guys. Yeah, you
Yeah.
said you'd join.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we don't miss it. We don't
Lots
miss
to learn
it.
from Carl. So yeah,
We're excited.
nice. Nice to see you, buddy.
Good seeing
Yeah,
you.
Javi.
too.
Close the windows in the back so it's not in the
So
shadow.
Carlos got pinwins.
Huh?
He's got penguins. Yeah.
What pinwin is that, Carl?
Those are kings or emperors, one or the other.
You got penguins also.
I'd have to see how tall they are in relation to something and what the
You can
background
have-
is, but I suspect they're kings because it looks like it might be a bit of a rocky background,
We can see
where emperors are always on the ice.
Yeah, it doesn't help a lot. We can
So the
see
kings are the second largest species. They get to a little, like let's say 2.5 feet tall when they stand. And we see those on the Falklands. We see those on King George Island. We don't see them when we're in Antarctica, but we see them in abundance in the Falklands and in South Georgia.
The emperor's the tallest, right? 4
The
feet.
emperor is the biggest one. Yep.
4 feet, right?
Very tough. Yeah, almost. But very
Nice.
tough to get to because they nest
So-
on the ice and they're away from the shoreline. They don't want anyone to bother them. So they're tucked away and they're hard to get to. But the kings, interestingly, on those voyages that include King George Island, South Georgia, there are colonies upwards of 200,000 birds, like 60,000 nesting pair, plus their chicks that hatch that year. And believe it or not, you can see those colonies on Google Earth. Satellite picks it up. So if you go onto Google Earth and you look for South Georgia and you know where to look, you can see these colonies. And when we're sailing, I tell guests that depending on how the wind is blowing, we're going to smell the colony long before we see it. Because you can imagine, a couple 100,000 birds or 150, 120 adults plus the recently hatched chicks. It can be a little overwhelming, the smell.
Not very clean, right?
Well, it's an incredible spectacle, though, because I think a lot of times we think that the only place in the world left where you're going to see huge congregations of wildlife like that is in East Africa in the Mara during the migration. But heading to Antarctica on the way and including South Georgia, you can see hundreds of thousands of penguins. The largest penguin colony is on a place called Zavodovsky Island, where there are an estimated 1.3 million chinstrap penguins, one colony of 1.3 million birds.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, oh wait. So save a little bit of that wisdom for
I will.
joints. Guys, I don't. So for those that are just joining, first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a very fun event. How you doing, Carolyn? Brian, Sandy, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be very fun, especially because we have the rare pleasure of having Mr. Carl Kanstetter in our meeting today. So Carl, for those that don't know him yet, and you're gonna get to understand why I'm saying this, is probably one of the most knowledgeable, how can I say this? I guess not, let's put it this way, one of the most knowledgeable humans in the entire Silversea team. Is that fair enough? The guy,
that's setting an incredible expectation, but and I'm grateful. Thank you.
we're gonna do a proper introduction in a second, but you guys are about to be delighted with a lot of great knowledge and expertise on expedition cruising, and obviously more specifically Silversea expedition cruising. So in a few minutes, we're going to get started. Well, actually, in just about a minute, we're going to get started. We're expecting a good turnout today. We already have 34 people joining our meeting. So we'll do proper introductions in a second, and we'll take it from there. I see a lot of names I know, a lot of names I recognize. Many of you are existing clients of ours. Many of you are about to be, hopefully, very soon. This will be a great opportunity to get to know you, for you to get to know us, and obviously to learn lots of information about Silversea expeditions and luxury expedition world in general. So, all right, we're right at 3:00, and we're going to be very timely, and we're going to start our meeting. And so, first of all, we're recording this. So, for those that are just joining, or for those that will join later, we'll make sure to share this recording with everybody so that you can enjoy it all over again if you want to. Okay. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. First of all, let me go ahead and spotlight myself. And let me spotlight Carl. There you go. That's Carl. Let me do this. I'm sorry. Let me pin myself and let me pin Carl. Okay.
Hi, Paul.
Hopefully you can both see.
Hi, everybody.
So, okay. So again, so thank you all of you for joining us. Welcome to our Silversea expedition event today with Carl Kanstetter. We are going to have a lot of fun learning about expedition cruising, about luxury expedition cruising, more specifically about Silversea. Carl I'm going to let Carl do his own introduction. But before we do that, because I know that once I let you start, you're probably going to be nonstop for a while. So before we do that, please know that this event is meant to be very dynamic and is meant for you to ask a lot of questions and learn a lot. I'm going to mute any of you right now. I'm going to mute all of you right now, but please feel free to use the chat to ask any questions. So I'm going to say hello. So this is exactly where you would want to ask your questions. Type them in there. And at the end of Carl's presentation, I'm going to make sure to read all those questions and make sure to get answers from Carl. At the same time, toward the end of the event, we're going to have an opportunity to open up our mics and ask some live questions as well. Also, throughout the event, you are going to get some polls kind of popping up in your screen. These are being run by Denise, our lovely marketing manager here. Denise, say hello. Hello. And so she will be asking you some questions so that we can understand who's joining us, kind of what you like, what you don't like, kind of get a little bit of info on you guys as well. Kind of just like this. So have you sailed with Silversea Cruises before? And as we do this, we will we'll share the answers as well. So while you guys answer that poll question, Carl, take it away. So first of all, please introduce yourself and kind of what you do for Silversea. Oh, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Carlos Edery. I'm the CEO of Luxury Cruise Connections. And by the way, also in this team, you're going to see a lot of people with a dash Luxury Cruise Connections after their name. Those are Luxury Cruise Connections team members. Carl, we have an amazing relationship. We connect all the time. We talk all the time. We work as if we were part of the same team, but actually Carl is part of the Silversea team. And so Carl, now go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us about you.
All right. Thank you so much, Carlos. Yes, my name is Carl Kanstetter, and I'm the Director of Expedition Sales for Silversea Cruises. And I've been with Silversea about 4.5 years now. I was with another expedition operator before that focused exclusively on the polar regions. So that's where I got my feet wet, so to speak, in the expedition cruising side of things. But I've always been dabbling in expedition and adventure. This photograph, for example, was taken in 2009 in Papua New Guinea at a wedding ceremony. I was escorting a group of people in Papua New Guinea. So this sort of travel, expedition and adventure and that sort of thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and what that means, is what I like to do personally and professionally. And you'll find out quickly that I also love to talk about it. Carlos hinted at that. But I want to remind you of something that Carlos said that I think was very important. This is for you. This isn't for me to hear myself talk. This is for you. So please do use the chat function. And remember that after the 15 or 20 minutes that I show you some of these images and talk a little bit about what we do and how we do it and where we do it, then let's do some Q&A and let's try to answer your questions. As general as what is expedition cruising and how does it differ from traditional cruising, to let's get into specifics. What's the right time of year to go to the Galapagos, and which itinerary should I go on in order to see the waved albatross doing its little courtship dance? You know, we can get into get into the minutia. This photograph was taken at the North Pole in April of 2015. This was the first time I went to Antarctica in February of 2002, so a little over 20 years ago. And this was in Antarctica in December, very recently, a couple months ago, when I was there with a group of people. So Silversea, a little bit of background about Silversea. One of the hallmarks of our brand and one of the pedestals on which the whole thing is held up is the fact that our ships are quite small. Our largest ship holds 608 guests. And when you think about, for example, the average ship in Alaska these days is 2,500 people. Some of the ships floating around in the Caribbean and the Med are 4,000, 5,000, 6,500 people. Our largest one is 608, and we just go down from there in guest capacity down to as few as 100. So coming out of COVID or whatever stage we're in of this thing, we're finding that a lot of people are extremely attracted to that notion of small luxury ships because you know how few people we carry and where we can go as a result of that. And that's what we're speaking to with this slide. Over 900 different destinations, and that's more than twice as many as our closest competitor, because it's the size of those vessels that allows us to do that. So on similar hardware, our competition would put 1,250 people. We're only putting 600. They would have a staff to guest ratio of 1 staff member to 3 guests. We're 1 to 1.4. So it's almost 1 to 1. And our suite size tends to be larger as well, the average suite size. The fleet is currently made up of these 10 vessels. And with Expedition, we're talking specifically about these 4. The Silver Origin at 100 guests, the Explorer at 144, the Cloud at 240, and the Wind at 274. So of those 10 I spoke about, these are the 4 that have that are the smallest and have the least guest capacity. And again, that allows us to get to these really remote parts of the world where there is nobody else, where the ship itself is the platform from which we go and explore. It's this little floating luxury hotel. So of those 900 different destinations I mentioned, 570 of them are with Expedition, so well more than half. And it's places as far-flung as the Arctic and Antarctica, the Russian Far East, the Kimberley coast of Australia, the northwest piece of Australia, Easter Island, the Russian Far East I mentioned before, literally anywhere water touches land. So what's expedition cruising? This is not expedition cruising. And these people are not on an expedition cruise. There are just too many of them. There's nothing wrong with this style of cruising. It's where many, many people start out. Silversea is owned by Royal Caribbean. So I'm not slagging the contemporary cruise lines. It's where most people start when they first learn or when they start cruising, because they've got less time, they've got less disposable income. The ship is the destination. It has a go-kart track, it has a wave pool, it has a climbing rock, it's got all of these cool things. The destination is secondary. Where you're sailing to is secondary because you're with 6,000 other people. The ship is very much the destination, particularly if you've got small children. But as we get older and our tastes change and we make a little bit more money, we're more established in our careers, we've got more vacation, it's kind of like moving from economy class air to business class air. You've got more space, you've got more choice or better choices, and you've got better service. And once you go, you never come back. So With expedition, the idea then is, as I said, we're exploring a little bit deeper. We're traveling a little bit deeper. We're using the ship as a platform to fully immerse ourselves in these small ports that are really off the beaten path. For example, and you might not think of London as an expedition destination, but this is one of our expedition ships, because from here, we will go up and get into the Orkneys and the Shetlands and the remote parts of Scotland and Ireland. But the point here is the size of this vessel. She's small enough that we can sail under the Tower Bridge of London. And this is amazing because when you look at cruise itineraries and that include London, typically beside London in brackets, you see Southampton or Dover or Greenwich. When we say London, we mean London because we're sailing up the Thames, we're tying up beside the HMS Belfast, and you're downtown. So the size of the ship really, really matters. The other place where this is significant, and there are many, but I'll just use one more example, St. Petersburg. And of course, we're not sailing there right now. And we hope to be sailing there again when this is all over. But many times a cruise ship will have to call into the port of St. Petersburg. And it's kind of an industrial, heavy duty port. And it's about a 40-minute drive into St. Petersburg from the port. Our ship is small enough to sail up the river. We tie up at the English embankment and you're a 15-minute walk from the Hermitage. And we spend 2 nights there. So you're there 3 days. And then when we're done, the ship can do the turn in the river because the ship is small enough to do that turn in the river and then head back out and continue in the Baltic. So the size of the ship is very, very significant. The other thing with expedition is that where we're going, typically, there is no infrastructure. There are no roads, there are no buses, there are no cathedrals and art galleries and museums and all these sorts of things. So we take the infrastructure with us in the form of zodiacs, in the form of the guides. There are no local guides that we're going to pick up when we get there. So we take the guides with us, kayaks, and all of the excursions that we do when we're off of the ship. So there are 2 misconceptions that we frequently hear about. Those who are familiar with Silversea, they say, well, you guys are too luxury to be expedition. I've sailed with you before, or I know about you, I've heard about you, I've read about you, and you're extremely luxury with butler service and all this sort of thing. How can you possibly be expedition? Well, that's the beauty is we've married these 2 ideas. We take these small floating luxury hotels and to these remote parts of the world. So you will break a sweat. You will get penguin guano on the bottom of your boots. But when you get back to the ship, that's where the butler comes in, and the butler will clean the penguin guano off the bottom of your boots, and he'll have a drink waiting for you, your favorite drink, in your suite. So we're not too luxury to be expedition. We're doing the real thing. This is in the Darien Gap in Central America, sea kayaking in the Arctic, a remote beach in Iceland. This is in the Russian Far East, so across the Bering Sea from Alaska. And these places have a couple of things in common. One, you couldn't buy a t-shirt if you wanted to. There are no t-shirt shops. We're the only ones here. You're not going to get a cell signal. There are no cell signals. And again, we take the infrastructure with us. This is in the Galapagos. This is on a hiking trail through a forest in Madagascar. Even traditional destinations like Japan, but we do it very differently. We get into little fishing villages by Japanese standards, about 400,000 people, taking in a little cruise ship of 140 guests and visiting parts of Japan that most people just don't get to. So you could even bookend this. You could go and do a very traditional sort of Japanese trip with Tokyo and Kyoto and get up to Hakone to see Mount Fuji, and then tack on a cruise, an expedition cruise, and go around Japan, stopping into these little ports and seeing these out of the way little places in Japan. Or here we are in Malaysian Borneo. The other misconception is that we're too expedition to be luxury. Those who aren't familiar with Silversea but have researched expedition travel, and particularly if they researched expedition travel years ago or sailed on an expedition vessel years ago. I showed you an image of the first time I was in Antarctica 20 years ago. The ship in the background was a Russian icebreaker. We were, in some cases, 3 and 4 to a cabin, and it was not a suite, it was a cabin. In many cases, you had to go down the hall to use the shared bathroom. The dining facility was very much like a cafeteria. Food was okay, but it's nothing anyone would ever remember. And again, very much a cafeteria style, because that's what expedition cruising was. It was these sort of out of work Russian research vessels that were being repurposed, and no one thought to build ships that were purpose built for expedition. So this notion that it's too expedition to be luxury is completely false as well. And I hope you can see over the course of some of these images just how beautiful the ships are, both inside and out, and the attention to detail where the dining is concerned, where the fine wines are concerned, where the butler service is concerned. That all translates. Those of you that are familiar with Silversea, who have sailed with us before, all of that you're used to on the classic side of things, the butler service and the fine dining and the wines, that all translates to expedition as well. You don't give any of that up. This is the Explorer's Lounge on the brand new Silver Origin, which was purpose built for the Galapagos. This is the dining room on the Silver Explorer looking out at Antarctica. And you can see this is just a beautifully appointed dining room and spectacular food. This is the ship I was on in December in Antarctica, and people raved about the food. So who's sailing with us on expedition? Well, obviously people that are looking to get off the beaten path, people who are highly educated, looking for, they want to learn. Because one of the big differences between expedition cruising and traditional cruising or classic cruising is that there are no casinos. There is no song and dance in the theater. There's no Broadway style show. It's very much an educational experience, because all these guides, and I'll talk about them a little bit more, they are marine biologists, glaciologists, polar historians. They come with this wealth of knowledge, and there are formal lectures and informal talks with them on the beach or in a Zodiac as you're cruising along. So that's why a lot of our guests are quite well educated. They want to learn. They want to use this experience to understand a lot more. They're looking for adventure. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational families. So parents taking their children to places like the Galapagos and Antarctica. I have a 9-year-old, and I don't want to take him to Europe yet, because dragging him around the cathedrals and the art galleries and the old cobblestone streets of Europe is not my idea of fun, and he's not going to have any fun. So therefore I'm not going to have any fun. But I took him to the Galapagos, and I took him to Japan, and he loved it. And he loved getting in the Zodiac, and he loved bombing around in the Zodiac and speaking with the marine biologists and the biologists. So it's a wonderful thing, wonderful opportunity for kids. We're noticing as well multi-gen families, so the grandparents, the middle generation, and the grandchildren. And in some cases, we're now noticing something called gramping, where the grandparents are taking the grandchildren. Every grandchild upon graduating high school gets a trip, and they get to choose where they go. Or in my case, in the Galapagos, I saw this couple from the UK, and they had invited their 3 granddaughters, each one from a different family. So the 3 girls were cousins. They were all sort of 12, 13, 14. The girls got to spend time together in the Galapagos. And I talked to the grandparents about it, and they said, we're not buying them a Fitbit, we're not buying them an iPad, we're not buying them a video game, we're giving them an experience. And long after we're dead, when these girls are in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s, they will be talking about this time that their grandparents took them to the Galapagos. So I think it's just a lovely, lovely legacy, this idea. If you've gone on high-end safari to Southern Africa or East Africa, or a high-end river cruise, this lifestyle and what we do and moving around every day and things like that is very much in keeping with what we do on expedition cruising. And of course, if you're into wildlife, because most of the places that we go to are so remote that there's still plenty of wildlife. One of the questions and one of the concerns is, how fit do I need to be? People hear that word expedition and they think they need to be a triathlete. And I think you can see here, there are a variety of activity levels. You can walk along a boardwalk in the Galapagos that's quite even and quite flat and very, very easy for most people to do. But we could go hiking on a more strenuous trail in Antarctica, and I'll show you a little bit of what that might be. So the types of activities that we're up to, of course, we're getting off of the ship. We're walking around, as I said, and it could be flat, even ground on a beach. It could be a hike that got us here, but you're always given options, and these are always outlined to you the evening before. There are places in the Galapagos, for example, where you'll be told there are 5 things to choose from tomorrow morning. There's kayaking, there's snorkeling off the beach, there's deep water snorkeling. You can beach walk and just hang out on the beach, or we're going to do a strenuous walk up and over the other side of the island to go see the young albatross learning to fly, and kind of all of those options for people to choose from. So nothing's a forced march. You go at your own pace. But incredible hiking opportunities. And, you know, another option that we don't often talk about is to stay in your suite, stay on the ship. The ship is beautiful. It has incredible amenities. You've got butler service. Have breakfast in bed one morning. Nope, we're not going on the hike today. We're having breakfast in bed. We're having a relaxing day. We're going to let all this information sort of percolate, and we're just going to chill and relax on the ship. The other way that we go and explore is using the Zodiacs. And these are like Jeeps, again, using the idea of safari, or talking about, you know, going on safari in East Africa, using the Zodiacs to get us even further than the ship got us, to really penetrate into these areas and go and explore. This is off the northwest coast of Australia at a place called Montgomery Reef, going and exploring bird cliffs in the Arctic, visiting local communities in Alaska or in the Russian Far East and learning about their lifestyle. So the cultural exchanges are part of what we do as well. So hiking, Zodiac cruising, these cultural exchanges, meeting with the locals. This is in Papua New Guinea. Wildlife viewing. That image was a little bit out of context. I'm sorry. One of the other experiences is sea kayaking, and we provide all the gear. We have the kayaks with us. There's no additional cost. All of these excursions and these visits off the trip, everything off the ship, everything I'm talking about, this is all included. We're never asking you for more money. This is all included. And again, we provide all the kayak gear and instruction. So you see the 2 red kayaks there. Those are the kayak guides who accompany the kayakers. Snorkeling is another way that we go and explore, and we provide all the snorkeling gear. And now in this sort of COVID side of the world, we give you a brand new mask and snorkel. So we provide the wetsuit, we provide the fins. They're reused from one voyage to the next after being sanitized. But we thought it's going to be awkward to ask people to put on a mask and put a snorkel in your mouth that someone was using 2 days before. So everyone just gets a brand new mask and snorkel in the bag, yours to keep and take home with you, never been used before. And the other way that we explore is using the ship. So depending on what's happening, and you know, astronomical phenomenon like this, or what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of weather phenomenon. We're using the ship. We're getting out on deck and looking at these phenomena. We're using the ship to get deeper into the ice and to penetrate, because our polar ships have a high ice class. In this case, this was on my voyage in December. The captain parked the ship in the ice, and then we got off and walked around. This was first year fast ice. So we're always exploring. And then quickly, the expedition staff, I've mentioned them before. They've written books. They've had books written about them, honestly. One of our expedition staff members and one of the expedition leaders is a woman who was the first woman to scuba dive in Antarctica in 1988. One of the expedition leaders is an English guy who overwintered in Antarctica. He spent 14 months consecutively in a British Antarctic Survey research station. So that means he spent an entire winter in Antarctica, and it gets dark for 6 months and extremely cold. That's the caliber of the expedition staff that we're working with. And they're there to help you with everything from your photography to helping you on with your gear, and of course, answering all your questions along the way. There's always a meeting, sort of an informal recap and briefing every evening. Where did we go today? What did we see? What did we do? And where are we going tomorrow? And what are our activity options tomorrow? So they're always there. They're always willing to help. And they want to bring this to life for you. And then I'll show you this quick little video.
Adaptability and flexibility are key elements of expedition cruising. We don't have such a set itinerary as such. You know, we're not guaranteed to go to a particular place. It all depends on weather conditions. I work closely with the captain on this, looking at forecasts for the upcoming days and how it will affect our itinerary, whether certain areas need to be avoided, whether we need to look at plan B, C, D, and also down in the Antarctic then on ice charts, whether ice comes into play or not as well. I keep coming back to Antarctica, I suppose, because of the rewards that it gives us. It creates huge challenges, you know, to operate down here, and you never know exactly how it's going to work out, but it always does. You always get this amazing experience at the end of the day, and to see just the reaction of the guests that we have down here, see just how much fun and enjoyment they're having the whole time. It's just incredible.
Oops. Don't need to say it again. There. Denise, I went a few minutes over. I'm sorry. But I think we still have plenty of time for questions. Are all Silversea Cruises expedition? No, they are not. So of the 10 vessels that I mentioned, 4 of them are expedition ships. The other 6 are what we would say are our classic ships, deep water cruising, going to fairly traditional regions, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Northern Europe, Asia, when we can start going back there, Australia, New Zealand, the Persian Gulf, again, all over the world. But the ships are smaller than traditional cruise ships because the classic ships range in guest capacity from 388 people to 608 guests. So even when you look at one of our Caribbean itineraries, you're seeing ports that you don't really see on most cruise lines itineraries because they can't get into the places that we go to. And imagine, you know, a little place, St. Bart's. Large ships can't get in there. And even if they did, you'd walk through a duty-free shop to get off the ship or to get off the pier, and there'd be 4 or 5 other ships in port, each one with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6,000 people. So it's like a small invasion. We're going to tiny little towns where they don't see other cruise ships. We're the only ones there. We're extremely welcome because they love the fact that we do stop there, that we can, but we're only a couple hundred people instead of a few thousand people. All right. Do we stop in Barbados? Sure. We have itineraries that include Barbados. Is more than one.
I was gonna say just real quick. Let me intervene. Yeah. And there's plenty of questions also that I got sent like direct private messages. So okay. I'll also help with that. And Brian, we'll get back to your question in just one sec. We at the beginning of our presentation, we did run a quick poll. Many of you, actually majority of you, have not had an opportunity to sail with Silversea. So I'm going to use 2 seconds to do a quick endorsement here because I think it's important, right? Here at Luxury Cruise Connections, we specialize in luxury cruising, right? What we stand for as a company is delivering the most amazing travel experiences and not only obviously the experience itself, but the entire planning process as well, right? So as a luxury agency, we make sure we take care of every detail for you, every step of the way. But the most important thing for us as we do this is we can deliver amazing service through the booking process, right? We can recommend you very well. We can hold your hand. We can reply to your emails promptly. We can answer your phone calls promptly. All of that, great. But we send you on a cruise, and if you don't have an amazing time and your experience is not top notch, then obviously we end up in a very horrible position because we were the ones that recommended. So with this, what I'm trying to express is we've been doing business with Silversea for a long time. We've been great partners. Silversea has been great partners of ours. We have an amazing partnership to a level that, I mean, it's just literally very, very special. And the reason why that exists is because we feel extremely comfortable that every time we put one of our guests on board a Silversea ship, they're going to be pampered, they're going to have an amazing time, they're going to dine incredibly well, and they're going to come back raving about it, and they're going to tell their friends and send us more clients. So that is why we do such great business with Silversea. And so just 2 cents to explain. I know that you talked a lot about the Silversea experience, but just to put this in perspective, there are currently in the waters, there are basically 3 very high-end cruise lines, right? Silversea being obviously one of them, Regent 7 Seas, and Seabourn Cruises. Each of these cruise lines do an incredible job. Today, we're focusing obviously on Silversea and the uniquenesses about Silversea, right? So everything that Carl is telling you, packaged with butler service, packaged with marble bathrooms, packaged with attention to detail, packaged with the flexibility of deciding how you want to travel. So Amy was telling us she had door to door, but Silversea also offers a more entry level way of trying Silversea, which they call the port to port, which is more restrictive rates, but a lower rate that, for somebody that says, well, can I really make sense of the extra money? Well, try it out and you'll see that you actually do make sense of the extra money. And so, sorry to kind of interrupt the flow there, but I just thought it was relevant to make that pointer.
No, it's extremely relevant, and I'm glad you did. Yeah, thank you.
And so, Brian's question: what about Barbados?
Barbados, yeah. I'd have to look specifically at some of the itineraries, but yeah, Bridgetown features prominently in some of our itineraries, and very often Bridgetown is the start or end point. As a matter of fact, my family and I are looking at a cruise in December that starts in Bridgetown and ends in, well, we would disembark in Guayaquil, Ecuador, but it goes all the way to Lima, Peru. There's a 12-day if you get off in Ecuador, it's 16 if you get off in Lima, and it goes through the Panama Canal. So, and I know that one, for example, starts in Bridgetown because we're considering how do we get to Bridgetown from Toronto and what have you. So yeah, Barbados, I would have to look specifically and work with your Luxury Cruise Connections travel advisor to find an itinerary that includes Barbados, if you mean an itinerary that spends some time in Barbados and includes ports of Barbados where we disembark and explore around Barbados. Typically, it's not a destination that we would spend much time with the expedition ships. The expedition ships don't spend too much time in the Caribbean. Usually because we're making our way, we spend a good 3 months or so in Antarctica, then we make our way north and we spend another 3-4 months in the Arctic or in the northern regions. So when we're not in Antarctica and the Arctic, we're passing through. But we have passed through the Caribbean, and I know that there were voyages scheduled this year. They didn't happen because of regulations of entering Brazil, but there was supposed to be a almost 3-week expedition voyage that left from Fortaleza, Brazil, into the Amazon, all the way to Manaus, all the way back out of the Amazon, then exploring northeastern South America, so the Guyanas, and then up through the Caribbean and ultimately ending in Bridgetown. And then that one carried on from Bridgetown to Fort Lauderdale to Halifax. So those unfortunately did not happen this year, but anyway, that's a lot about Barbados.
There too, yeah. And by the way, just to add a little bit more to that, in case somebody is interested in spending more time in port, for example, remember that, well, there's 2 things that we can do. One is we can either use one of Silversea's pre or post packages, right? That most likely there's a 2-night already off the shelf package, or we can also, Luxury Cruise Connections, we can custom build an extension for you. Part of our company is also not just cruising, but we're part of a larger organization. We have amazing hotel contracts and land operator contracts. So, for example, you want to spend 2 or 3 days more in Barbados, you want to stay at a luxury hotel. If Silversea happens to not have more availability in their off-the-shelf package, we can custom create one or maybe choose a specific hotel for you. So all that flexibility is what luxury travel is. The expectations for a luxury traveler are, and so that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Let me start from the top, Carl, with a couple of questions that I got on direct message.
Yeah.
Frank was asking me, January 2023 Antarctic cruise. Well, when will I receive suggested clothing package list? So I guess Frank is scheduled to depart on a January 2023 Antarctic.
Yep.
So,
Why don't, when we're done here, why don't I send you something, Carlos, via WhatsApp, and then if you don't mind, can you send that on to Frank? Let's get it to you sooner than later, Frank, so you can start looking at the clothing list.
Perfect, Frank. I'll have somebody as soon as I get it from Carl. I'll have somebody from our team reach out to you with the information. Okay, count on that. By the way, guys, I do want to mention something. I know hopefully many of you in today's event are existing clients of Luxury Cruise Connections, but even if you aren't, we stand true to our commitment to making travel dreams come true. We're really extremely committed to service. So even if you made a booking and you didn't make it through us, but need help, count on us. We're really here to help. We want to help you. Hopefully that'll be an opportunity to start a relationship. Maybe one day you'll do business with us, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure we get to know you and help you with anything that you need. Okay, just keep that in mind. So don't feel bad if you happen to have booked something and didn't do it with us. That's fine. We'll be happy to help. Okay, so the Barbados question. Okay, John was asking, is there more than one excursion included at each stop? And clarify that question both for classic and expedition, please.
Yeah, it depends on the type of excursion, but let's talk about expedition first. So in a place like the Galapagos, where the weather is not something that we need to contend with, there's no ice to contend with, for example. Yes, every day 2 excursions. We go out in the morning and we come back to the ship for lunch, and then we go out again. And again, drawing parallels to safari, we try to stay on the ship for sort of those 3 hours, 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock, that hottest part of the day. The animals are not particularly active at that time of day, again, just like safari. So we'll go out in the morning. In the Galapagos, they may wake you up as early as 6:30 or 7 o'clock to go and have breakfast, to then be off the ship by 7:30, 8 o'clock, gone for say 3 hours or so, maybe back to the ship around 11:30, have some lunch, we navigate to another part of the island, and then back out again in the afternoon. In Antarctica and in the Arctic, and I use those 2 places as examples specifically because of the conditions that we have to work around. The intention is to get off of the ship twice a day, to do 2 excursions a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, with a break for lunch to navigate somewhere else and let the guests come back to the ship, warm up, freshen up, use the bathroom, go to lunch. But in the polar regions, we do have ice to deal with sometimes. So wind and weather and waves and ice, and those can sometimes foul up our plans. Now, we've got a plan B and a plan C. You heard that expedition leader in that video, the Irish guy, talking about having plan B and plan C and plan D. And we often have to revert to those because the plan was in the morning, we were going to go into ABC Bay, but overnight the wind blew in a different direction than we expected, and it blew ice into the bay. And as a result, we can't get the Zodiacs in there. But a good expedition leader and a good expedition team have a couple of things in their back pocket. Okay, well, we're going to go around to the other side of that island because that means the wind blew that bay empty of its ice, so we can get in there. So we try to do 2 landings a day. In expedition, we have to work with what the weather conditions give us. On Classic, the short excursions are included.
Before you move on to Classic, so
Yeah.
you make 2 landings, but then for each one of those landings, there's options for people to choose from. So
Yeah,
just to clarify, when it comes to expedition, guys, and Carl, keep it real here, everything is included. Every excursion that you choose, well, let's be more specific. Most of the excursions you could possibly choose from are included. Carl, there are some excursions that might be at an additional charge because of because they're particularly very special or very
Yeah,
very
yeah. When we can include everybody, when we know that there are, let's use the largest expedition ship we have as an example. Let's use the Silver Wind with 274 guests. When we know we can take all 274 people on shore and go hiking, not all at the same time, by the way. When we know that we can take all 274 people Zodiac cruising at different times in the morning, any of those activities are included. If we get to a spot, and I know that someone mentioned Alaska in here, if we get to a spot that's like in Alaska, for example, where the infrastructure is incredible, particularly the expedition or adventure infrastructure, and there are opportunities to do helicopter flights, but there's no way in one morning that we could get 274 people up on a helicopter and back in time, then we say, okay, there are some optional excursions here that you may want to pay for and do privately. We're still going to operate ours. We're going to go hiking. We're going to do a Zodiac cruise. We're going to do a guided walk. If you want to go on a helicopter ride, here's our partner, and it's $199 per person for a 20-minute helicopter ride, or whatever that might be. So you're absolutely right, Carlos. Yeah.
basically that so that it's optional. People actually have to sign up for it. There's a little bit of a barrier to, so that not everybody at the same time wants to go on a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to do with the numbers of people. If we can get everybody doing it, then we will include it.
Now, what about classic? So if some of you sailed with Silversea pre-pandemic, you probably might find this interesting, because before the pandemic, right, as of 2022, correct me if I'm wrong, Silversea did not include excursions. Now, starting January 1st, 2022, excursions are included. Did I get that right?
You got it right. Yeah. So one shore excursion per day is included on classic. And again, by classic, I mean the Caribbean, the Med, Northern Europe, the Baltics, that sort of thing. So one shore excursion included per day.
Sorry, one shore excursion that you can take is included per day, but you have a choice of multiple free options. Multiple free options. You know, there might be as many as 12 or 15 free options to choose from. And, you know, opening up the kimono a little bit and letting you in on something, we calculate roughly $100 per person per day for those shore excursions. Now, again, we get to a spot that there helicopter rides are available, but we couldn't possibly get 600 people out on a helicopter ride. Those are called selected shore excursions. So there might be 12 or 15 included ones to choose from. They have a value of roughly $100. The selected ones, there might be, again, 8 or 10 to choose from, and they come at a cost, but they've been supplemented by the $100 that was already allotted for the included one. So if it's a $250 helicopter ride, if I show up there, you as a Silversea guest are paying $150 because we've already put $100 towards it. All right. In terms of the number of them, it depends on how long the shore excursion is, and it depends how long we're in port. Typically, we're in port, you know, from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. So 10, 12, 14 hours. There's typically enough time to do 2 in a day. And the included ones are usually half day. And if you wanted to do a second one, then you would have to find a second one that appeals to you and pay for that. But one is included per day. Excellent. I got another question here internally. Zara is asking me, how does Silversea expedition compare to National Geographic expeditions?
Okay. The areas that we go to, and I'll use 2 examples, the Galapagos and Antarctica. Galapagos is highly regulated by a nation, by Ecuador, and the Galapagos National Park Service. So the Galapagos National Park Service tells all of us who operate there, Lindblad / National Geographic, Celebrity Cruises, our sister cruise line, Silversea, they dictate to all of us which island we can visit on which day and what we can do when we get there. They are the ones who say, here's your list of 5 activities that you're allowed to do in ABC Bay on island XYZ. So they tell us, we can't decide tomorrow we're going to offer parasailing or jet skis. We never would. But we can't dictate what we do and where we do it and when we do it. The Galapagos National Park Service tells us all of those things. So my point being that the experience off of the ship, it's a level playing field, because National Geographic, Lindblad, us, Celebrity, our sister cruise line, wherever we disembark, we're only allowed to do what the Galapagos National Park Service tells us we can do there. So it's a level playing field. The big difference is when you get back to the ship. And that's where Silversea establishes itself. That's where Silversea differentiates itself, with the high staff to guest ratio, with the butler service, with the fine dining, multiple restaurants to choose from, wine service, exquisite wines. So no slag against our sisters at Celebrity, and certainly no slag against Lindblad National Geographic, but I would call them a solid 4, maybe even pushing 4.5 star, but they're not 5-star, and they don't have butler service.
Let me add to that. So, because obviously you being part of Silversea, you have to be, politically correct per se.
And gracious. Gracious.
And gracious. And by the way, we do business with Lindblad National Geographic as well. We do business with all of them, and I can tell you from our experience, obviously Silversea and National Geographic Expeditions, they both do an incredible job when it comes to expedition, right? One is luxury, Silversea, and National Geographic is just not going to be the same level of luxury. National Geographic, I'm going to give you guys a quick story so you know this. They purchased one of the old crystal ships, the Esprit, and they based that ship in the Galapagos. So they have a relatively very nicely built ship, right? Because it was built for crystal luxury, right? It's based in the Galapagos. But then the level of service and the staff to guest ratio and the delivery of cuisine, the delivery of attention to detail, well, that's why Silversea, that's where they shine, right? So that experience on board. Now, on the other hand, and Carl, also, if I'm saying something that I shouldn't, let me know, but National Geographic is going to be very famous, or at least they do a lot of their brand positioning based on their photography program, right? So if you're an avid photographer and that's your thing, right, and you don't necessarily care to have the luxury level of service on board the ship, you don't necessarily care to be pampered. All you care for is go and take amazing pictures, and you want the best photography program in the expedition world. And I think that's where National Geographic stands out, right? Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's I think it's a good way to put it. If that's what you're into, and that's the most important thing to you, that's the level 1 thing in your priority list, then that's where you want to go. If you want to be pampered while you have also an amazing experience, and I know that Silversea also has a great photography program on board, et cetera. So,
and the other thing is not to forget is look at the value. Look at the overall price and what does that price include. And look at things like, is the international air included? Are they including a couple of nights pre-cruise, in this case in mainland Ecuador, before going over? Look at all those things and apply a value to each one of them, and then look at the end of it. Is Silversea going to be more expensive on a per diem basis? Likely, but look at what you get.
Exactly. I'll be I guess asking on behalf of one of our guests, can you name some of those small ports that competitors can't visit?
In the Caribbean, I think I mentioned that with reference to the Caribbean. I'd have to look at an itinerary, but I know that when I sailed, this is early 19, I think, we had a sales conference at sea, and we took some of our trade partners from Latin America. We were going into St. Kitts and St. Bart's, and the larger cruise ships just can't get in there. I'd have to look at an itinerary and sit down with you and look at one of our itineraries, look at a map, and name some of the small islands and some of the ports on some of those small islands in the Caribbean that we go to. The other thing is to look at the Med. What we try to do in the Med is, as opposed to doing the same 10-day itinerary back and forth a number of times, we will build it in such a way that you can do 2, 3, 4, 5 of our med itineraries back to back to back to back and never visit the same port twice. And of course, it's going to involve Athens and Kusadasi and some of the big ones that you've heard of. But then you'll see ports in North Africa. You'll see ports along the Turkish coast, along the Greek coast, some of the smaller islands in Greece that you have not heard of before, unless you're an extremely well-traveled person. But it's strictly, spend some time on our website, spend some time with your Luxury Cruise Connections advisor, and really explore a little bit. Get one of our brochures sent to you and take a look around, because again, I'm sorry I can't name them off the top of my head. Ask me to name some of the beaches that we landed in Antarctica, and I'll be here all day. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of spending some time looking at the website and some of the itineraries.
Carolyn is asking us, are all gear provided on non-expedition cruises like Alaska for expeditions? She's leaving Vancouver, and when do we clear U.S. customs and immigration? I think that's
okay. So 2 separate questions. So
the gear question is also, it's a different answer for expedition and Alaska, right?
Correct. So, yeah. Where gear is concerned, that's strictly on expedition voyages. And when it's an expedition voyage to a colder part of the world, the Chilean fjords, Alaska expedition, the Arctic, Antarctica, Greenland, even the Russian Far East, we provide the parka. If you remember in those images, people were wearing these bright red parkas. We provide those. And then we send that comprehensive packing list that I'm going to be sending the link to for Frank, suggesting things like waterproof pants and waterproof and insulated boots, and how to get them, and our partner that we work with to provide you with that kind of gear. On Classic, there's really no gear per se to worry about, because we're not doing Zodiac landings. We're not asking you to step in water. So on a Classic Alaska voyage, we're actually coming alongside in Ketchikan and in Sitka and in Juneau. So you're going down a gangway onto a pier. We're not asking you to step in water, cold water. So anything that you would want to take from a gear perspective, you're just packing as though you're going to Alaska. So, take a good coat, take your insulating layers, all those sorts of things. Again, I'm happy to send the packing list for Alaska that we would normally include for expedition. But again, you're not stepping off of a Zodiac into water or doing anything like that with a Classic or traditional Alaska cruise. For
Antarctica or Arctic, boots are necessary. You have a third-party vendor that you deal with to rent the boots from, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're based in Seattle, ship to shore traveler. They're phenomenal. They'll ship it to your home so you can try it on ahead of time, or they will ship it to the ship. You arrive at the ship and the gear is in your suite waiting for you. The parka is always included, and it's yours to keep and take home with you. The other gear, the boots and the waterproof pants, those are items that we just felt that most people are never going to use again. Especially if you're in the southern part of the U.S., waterproof pants or big, heavy insulated boots, unless you intend to do a lot more expedition cruising, and I hope you do, but you're likely never going to use them again. So we don't provide those for you to keep. They're available to rent very reasonably, and then you leave them there. You leave them on the ship. It's something you don't have to lug home with you.
Cool. And then the question about clearing U.S. customs.
Oh, clearing U.S. customs, yes. So we talked about this early at the start before we got started formally. You'll need the ArriveCan app and complete the ArriveCan app thing before you arrive, or as you're arriving in Canada. You show that QR code to the Canadian immigration official. You then board the ship. And then when we first enter American waters, Alaskan waters, what we'll do, or likely the first port that we stop in, we will bring U.S. immigration officials on board. they will have an opportunity to look at everyone's passport. You're clearing into the US at that point. So you'll hear that expression a lot, clearing in and clearing out. So you'll clear out of Canada and you'll clear into the US. So that's all done on board. Those officials come on. The hotel manager has a manifest of everybody's name, everybody's passport number, everybody's date of birth. They will take your passports as you embark, and security will hold on to those because the immigration officials need to physically see the passport. It's rare, but occasionally they will ask you to cycle through the dining room or whatever area has been set up for those immigration officials, because it's rare, but they might want to hold up the passport and look at the individual and make sure that your face matches the picture on your passport. But most of the time, given the volume of traffic that goes through Alaska, it's a pretty straightforward deal. They know you've cleared into Canada, so and for the time being, you trust us to have screened out the bad people.
Cool. Brian was asking, where are you home ported?
Well, so our head office is in Monaco. We have an office in Miami, but when we sail out of the US, I would say our home port is Fort Lauderdale, for lack of a better explanation or answer to that. What do you think, Carlos? What's the right answer to that question?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, your sales operation is out of Miami, and
Yeah.
your ships are just all over the world. So you don't have a particular home port per se.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I when I think of you guys, I think of you guys as being in Miami because that's where your sales office is.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Like I said, when we sail out of Florida, it's out of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. Jeff is asking, if one has a very hard time walking, sometimes I need a wheelchair, where would you recommend to go on your ships?
So I think expedition is off the table then at that point because of the nature of what we're doing. And as I mentioned, the lack of infrastructure in these places. We're landing on a remote beach in the Galapagos, or we're landing on a remote beach in Greenland. There are no walkways or sidewalks or very few boardwalks where we could do those sorts of things. And even getting in and out of the Zodiacs could prove challenging, but a wheelchair is definitely, unfortunately, with expedition, just not a great idea. Other than that, then I think it would depend on the ports where we're going to, the countries and the areas, the parts of the world that we're going to. I would say that Asia and Europe, the Japans of the world, and the Spain, Portugal, France, UK, better set up for ADA compliant type of ports and getting on and off the ships. All of the ships have ADA compliant suites, with the wide doors and the grab bars and things like that. So I know that every ship has at least a few ADA compliant suites, and it's easier to get around. I don't want to say it's easy to get around, but easier. But in terms of the ports, I would look for those places that have more infrastructure, like the Europes and the Asias. Some of the smaller islands in the Caribbean, I don't think would be set up for that. So I think I'd avoid that part of the world. Northern Europe as well, the Baltics, I think would be set up quite well.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then Brian was sharing with us that he lives in Barbados. So there are some Barbados, Brian. So feel free to, we'll reach out. We'll have somebody reach out to you so that we can look at some options for you. I'm sure we will find some options of putting out Barbados. And then Javier, thank you very much for sharing that packing list. But like I said, feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to communicate with you directly and send it to you via email and so forth. So
well done, Javi. Thank you.
Eileen, when is the best time to visit Antarctica, and the gear question we just answered. So
yeah, the Antarctic season runs for 4 months from November through to the end of February, perhaps into the first week of March. So if you think about it, it's winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer in the southern hemisphere, and that makes it easier for us to visit. So November, December, January, and February.
And then Carolyn is asking us, what are must-do excursions on the Alaska cruise?
It really depends what you're into. There's everything from crab fishing to flight seeing to rafting and hiking and going to a bear sanctuary, a beach cookout, and then walking through the village, walking through the town, going to a traditional First Nations village and seeing the totem poles. So if you're more interested in the cultural side of things, there are always a number of cultural excursions to choose from. If you're looking for something more active, there might even be mountain biking and things like that. It depends where we are. And honestly, it depends on what you're into. So I'm not trying to dodge the question or sound too vague about it, but it truly depends, what you're looking for, how active you want to be, how cultural you want to be. But I think we touched on this. In most of the Alaskan ports, I would say there are at least 8, I think in some cases 12 and 15 shoreks to choose from.
Perfect, thank you. And then the next question, it's one of the direct messages that I got, which really falls right into it. Do excursions fill up? Do the excursions fill up so I might not get the one that I want?
No, in general, no. So again, speaking about expedition, we time it in such a way that we know all 200, and again, using the example of the largest ship at 274, we know that all 74 people want to get ashore at this spot this morning and at the other spot in the afternoon. So we time it in such a way, basically it's 3 groups of 80. In this case, sorry, it's 3 groups of 90. So one group is getting a lecture, one group is going ashore, one group is Zodiac cruising for about an hour and a half. And then we rotate. The group that was on shore goes Zodiac cruising. The group that was Zodiac cruising get a lecture, and the group that was lecturing now go on shore. Everybody gets the same opportunity at the same place for about an hour and a half. So you add all those up, that's 4.5 hours. There's your morning gone, but you've done 3 things. You've had a lecture, you've gone ashore, and you've gone Zodiac cruising. So there's nothing to sign up for. The only thing that you would want to sign up for in the Galapagos, in Antarctica, in the Arctic, in all the places where we're going to operate or offer sea kayaking would be sea kayaking. They'll let you know the night before. Tomorrow we have 2 wonderful opportunities for sea kayaking, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. On your way to dinner, please use this clipboard and sign up for sea kayaking. And then it's a lottery. And we will choose from those names the 16 people who get to go first thing in the morning, the next 16 who get to go on the second outing, and then if we do it in the afternoon that day, the next 16 and the next 16. We find that about 1/3 of our guests want to go. So again, if you look at the largest ship at 274, let's say that's 90 people that want to go sea kayaking. On a good day, we can get through 60-something people. So over the course of a couple of days, it's not uncommon for the expedition team to come back and say, who would like to go kayaking a second time?
So when it comes to expedition cruises, usually there's no such thing as I missed out on this because I didn't book in time. But I will say though, and this is just a message to encourage people to plan ahead as much as you can. When it comes to classic cruising, right? You're planning a trip to the Med. Naturally, there's some stuff that is going to book before, some excursions. They're not, you have a wide array of options, but some are going to be booked up before, sooner than others. So plan ahead. Yes, obviously, the sooner you book, the sooner you'll be able to start choosing your excursions, and doing so will allow you to have a lot more options to just choose from in general. So it could happen in classic cruising that 1 or 2 might sell out at one point, and if you book way too late, you might just not have that option, right?
Yeah. And I think that's good advice in general, not just where excursions are concerned, but if you're thinking of cruising to a particular part of the world, expedition or classic, and I know this sounds like a sales pitch, but I say this in all sincerity, the sooner you book, the better, because as we come out of this, the pent-up demand for travel, the pent-up demand for cruising, I think there are a couple of factors at play. One, we all got 2 years older. 2, many of us have banked a fair bit of money because we didn't go traveling for 2 years. So there's money sitting, our travel budget got bigger. The pent up demand, there's this almost like we joke about it, we call it revenge tourism. Damn it, I'm going. I don't care what now. It's been 2 years and people are booking, and they're booking multiple voyages. They're booking longer voyages. They're going into higher category suites. So there's a lot of factors at play. And as soon as the US drops the requirement of a negative antigen test to get back in, watch the surge that happens. So Carlos is absolutely right. If you are thinking about something, even if it's 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years ahead of time, we're going to launch 24 next month and into early 25. That's how the demand is going, because people are saying, I want to book 24, I want to book 25. So we will have stuff in the market almost 3 years in advance. And we have to, because the demand is there.
And you're also going to be launching your 2025 World Cruise at one point soon, right?
Very soon.
Happen within the next couple of months.
Yeah, within the next few weeks.
Oh, really? Okay.
The 25 World Cruise? Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, there you go. So, hopefully I answered your question, Michael. How does Nancy? How you doing, Nancy? Thank you for joining us. She's asking us, how does Silversea compare to Seabourn?
I have never sailed Seabourn. Their ships tend to be a little bit larger than ours. I think sort of in the $700 range.
700 people range?
Yeah, sorry, 700 people range. So, a little bit larger. I don't think they've got the same staff to guest ratio. And the butler service. I think there are suite attendants, but I don't think you've got a butler and a suite attendant. Those I would say are the more significant differences. And I see there's a question comparing Silversea to Penang as well. I haven't sailed on Penang. The only experience or what I've heard back about Penang is that they're French, obviously. They're a French cruise line, but they're very, very French. And Carlos, maybe you have some experience, or some of your team do, but I've heard.
Let me just clarify a couple quick things. Just going back 1 second to Seabourn. Seabourn ships are not necessarily that much larger. In fact, we're talking about 500 guests. And they do have an expedition ship. I'm going to touch on that subject real quick because I think it's important, right? Seabourn also has an expedition, 2 expedition ships, right? They launched the Venture and the Pursuit, beautiful ships. And I'm sure they're going to do very well. I think the difference is going to be that Silversea just has been doing expedition for much longer, right? The Seabourn is new to the expedition world. When it comes to classic, not to say that Seabourn is bad expedition cruises, they're also going to be amazing. It's just there's going to be some differences, and I'll be happy to connect in detail on that, on those, with anybody that has more questions on that. But classic ships, yeah, they're going to be smaller. They're not 700 people. They're about 500, 400, 500 people. But it's a very different experience. Like Carl was saying, no butler service. You do get amazing service, and you do get suite attendants, but it's not the level of butler service that Silversea offers. It's more country club casual, while Silversea can still be very elegant casual, but I think those are kind of some of the main differences, right?
Carlos, also the shore excursions.
The excursions are not included with Seabourn, correct? Air is not included with Seabourn, correct? So there's those differences. I know that Carl has to log off very soon, so I'm going to try to go through as many questions as I can, and if I have any left, we'll stay on and we'll make sure to answer whatever questions that are left. By the way, I got Carl on speed dial on my WhatsApp message. So if there's anything else that I can answer, I can reach out to Carl and make sure to get back to you guys. So Carl, how much more time do you have?
Oh, just another 2-3 minutes.
Okay. So I think we can squeeze in one more question, maybe. Silversea jackets for dinner.
Yeah, I know. On expedition, it's not really a concern anymore, because we understand that, you've been out, you've had a parka and a hat on all day. The last thing you want to do is go and get gussied up for dinner and put a jacket on. The good thing I think about the dress code and formal nights and things like that, there are always options where the dining rooms are concerned. So, even on the Silver Cloud and the Silver Wind as expedition ships, there are 4 dining rooms, and there's the option of dining in your suite. On the larger ships, you've got 8 dining rooms to choose from and the option of dining in your suite. So if the notion of formal night just doesn't appeal to you at all, then don't go to the main dining room, choose one of the other spots, and country club casual is still completely fine. And if you want to keep it extremely casual, then order room service. And the beauty of room service on Silversea is you're not talking about a room service menu with chicken fingers and fries. You can order from any of the restaurants on board and have that delivered to your suite as room service. So, the formal thing, it's our European or Italian heritage, and the Europeans, the Italians, and we're based in Monaco, or the head office is in Monaco, they and the Brits, they cling to the formal nights, and I'm not sure why. And it's mostly us in the North American market that are saying, for heaven's sakes, get rid of it. But yeah, we still have a couple of formal nights, jackets for men, that sort of thing, but it can be avoided. You can dodge it. You're muted, Carlos.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that if you do absolutely have to log off, I can stay on to answer some of the last questions. But there's one question that, if you could, it's about COVID preparedness while on board. Just if you can give us 2 cents on what Silversea is doing to kind of keep it safe and help with the antigen test coming back and so forth.
Yeah. So the staff, first of all, everybody has to be vaccinated. And that's been true since we started sailing again in June of last year. All the crew from the captain on down, all the guests, everybody has to be vaccinated and show proof of vaccination. It gets tricky where the booster is concerned. It's not a requirement of ours. We follow the local guidelines of the countries that we're sailing in. So if they require that you be boosted, then we have to look for that booster on your Vax card. All the staff continue to wear masks at all times. There are enhanced and numerous cleaning stations all over the ship. We've changed all of the ventilation systems on the ship. 5% of all of the suite inventory has been taken out of inventory and reconfigured where the ventilation is concerned as isolation suites. So that should we have a C+ case on board, those guests are moved from their suite into one of these isolation suites that have this enhanced air circulation systems where negative air pressure is created in that suite that no air can get out, it can only go in, that sort of thing. Then the medical team would test you on a regular basis. And if it truly is a C+ case, we test again 24 hours later and it's a PCR and it is in fact positive, then we will check with the local authorities where we can disembark you next and get you into a hotel where you complete your isolation. What we've recently done, and I had a case last weekend where I was chatting with someone, we kept the guests on board because we didn't want to disembark them where we could, because we didn't feel that the standards would be high enough in that country. And we said, just stay on with us. So they stayed and sailed with us another couple of days until we could disembark them. And I think we disembarked them in Scotland, where they still had to quarantine for a few days. And some of that then has to do with the airline, because the airline, if you are C+, then they want to make sure that you've had 10 days since your 10 days of isolation since your positive result, and then you travel with a letter. But that's where the Silver Care team, we created this entire department called Silver Care. That's where they jump in and they start making changes to your airline. They work with the local authorities, the local hotel, local health authorities to have doctors come and visit, get you that letter of recovery that you need to fly home and that sort of thing. So we're making all sorts of precautions, taking all sorts of precautions and doing what we can to get people home quickly and safely.
Carl, I'm gonna let you go because I know you have to go.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
No, you're good. But what I'm gonna stay on for a few more minutes, and I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. So Carl, thank you very, very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. Like I said, I'm staying on to answer the last couple of questions, but if there's anything else that you guys feel that you want Carl's answer on, let me know. I'll be happy to reach out to him and get back with the answers to you.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carlos.
Percival, I see your hand. Give me a second. I'll be with you in just one sec. Going back to the question on Ponant, what Carl was explaining, he's absolutely right. Ponant is a French company. And not that they're very, very French, but part of the experience that you would see if you're on board Ponant is you would see that they have announcements. The announcements are going to be in French, and then announcements are going to be in English. You're going to see that at least 50% of the people on board the ship are French, and probably maybe 30% are going to be American or so. It's great cruise line, small ships, amazing experience, but it's going to be much more of a European experience, which could be great, right? Not saying that it wouldn't, but that's kind of the main difference with Silversea. And Silversea, again, is just going to be a little bit of a higher level of luxury, in my opinion. And Laura was asking, how are the smaller ships for singles? Laura, you should know there are plenty of single people traveling with Silversea and small ships. A lot of single people. We deal with it a lot. Many times there are special single rates and on specific sailings. We'll be happy to provide those to you whenever you're looking to cruise with Silversea. So absolutely, I think you'll have an amazing time meeting other singles and just much more intimate experience, precisely because they're smaller ships. You get to meet more people, you get to chat with more people, you get to interact with more people. First of all, go ahead and unmute yourself, ask us your question. Percival? No, you gotta unmute. You're still muted.
Yeah, all my questions were answered, Carlos. Very informative, going by Silversea. So at the moment, I'm quite content with all the information received. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, thank you. Thank you very much. You guys should know, just in case, I often get this question when we have this sort of event. We as a luxury travel agency, again, we have an amazing relationship with the cruise lines, with all of them. The luxury cruise lines particularly are, obviously we have the best relationships, being that that's what we focus on. A lot of sometimes guests see us and get to know us in these events, and they ask us if they've already booked directly with the cruise line, can they take advantage of our special amenities and special promotions and exclusive perks that we get while booking with Silversea? And the answer is yes. There are some timelines that we have to take into account. Not every single booking can be transferred over to the agency for us to add our perks, but in many, many cases, we can. So if you happen to have booked directly with the cruise line and you want to see what our special complimentary perks would be for your existing booking, let us know and we can take a look at it. And if it's within the time frame, we'll be happy to transfer it and provide you additional onboard credit or additional perks or whatever else we can do to make your experience an even better one. Of course, just so you know, that also would grant you access to our amazing team of advisors that can help you with everything, and our amazing team of concierge advisors that can also help you planning excursions, post reservations, anything else that you need. Like I said before, I do want to be very respectful of everybody's time. So I want to make sure that I cover any questions. Any other question? Are there anything else that you want to know about Silversea, about us at Luxury Cruise Connections? Please tell us. What else do you want to know? What else do you want to know? Amy, did you like it? Did you like the presentation?
I loved it.
Me too.
Good. Excellent. Sue, I see you. How you doing, Sue?
Doing fine.
Did you like the presentation?
Yes, it was very nice.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions? Anything else that you want to know?
They tell you, they covered the.
Carlos, there's a new question in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are big and tall sizes including expedition gear?
Oh, was that funny?
So, Rick, the third-party company that Silversea deals with specializes in expedition gear, and they do provide. They have a wide range of options. I am pretty sure, and we can double check this for you, but I'm pretty sure they can accommodate any size. So, yeah, I don't expect that. I see Javier nodding over there. I know that he's done this before. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah, they can accommodate any size basically, and you order Parker online, they have up to like triple XL or something like that. So plenty of options for any size.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you, Javi. All right. Well, if we have no other questions, then please know that, like I said, we're going to be sending a recording of this event via email. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email me directly. I'm going to give you my personal email address here. Well, my business address. LuxuryCruiseConnections.com. Feel free to
Thank
email me,
you.
and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions. And hope to see you
Bye,
at our next
Arnold.
event.
Hi.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, definitely.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you soon on our next event. Stay tuned for more.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.